Hey guys, Chase here. Welcome to the channel. Today we got something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be shooting some corporate headshots, and I wanted to take you guys along with me. So first off, we got to get all of our gear and everything together. I've actually done that today. So I like to kind of set things up the night before, make sure I have everything that I need, and then I do one last run through right before I get ready to go. So I'm all ready to go, and we just got to get the truck packed up, and then you see, I'm the type of guy that usually brings way too much stuff with him, but I've always believed that if I need it and don't have it, that's gonna be a lot worse than if I have it and don't need it. So I usually bring a lot more with me than is anticipated. For this one, I'm bringing 2 softboxes, extra lights, strobe, all the things that I might need just in case I run into some weird kind of lighting conditions or things like that. But more than likely, I'll probably just use this one big softbox and a strobe and just roll with one light. So now the truck's all packed up and we're just ready to go. Gotta do one last important thing though. Gotta get some coffee. All right, well now that we're all fueled up with coffee, we are ready to head out and head on to the shoot. So the main reason I wanted to make this video today is just to kind of encourage people in this year, in 2020. It's been a crazy, wild year, especially as a photographer. It's been even crazier with weddings being canceled and with us being mainly wedding and portrait photographers. It kind of makes it a little difficult when there aren't weddings going on. But there is hope still. Like this portrait session, or this headshot session rather, was actually kind of brought to me by one of our clients, one of our portrait clients. She actually hired us to take pictures of her high school senior, and we had the opportunity to do a senior photo session with her, and it was super great. And she liked our work so much that she actually reached out to us because she's the office manager of this business, and she wanted us to do the headshots for her whole office. So that's pretty awesome. It's just a matter of showing your clients that you really serve them well, and going above and beyond for people. And that's one of our biggest philosophies, is just always going above and beyond for everybody that we serve, every client that hires us, everybody that we encounter. And so because of that, we actually booked this headshot session. So it's pretty awesome. So like I said, today what I'm going to do is I'll kind of give you a little behind the scenes look. I'll try to set this camera up inside the office, and then I'll come back over with a little voiceover to tell you what I'm doing, show you what I've got going on as far as my setup is, and just kind of roll with it that way. So I'll see you guys when we get there.
So for this shoot, I actually wanted to showcase the building that these employees work in. It's a really cool old brick church building, and it had this really awesome brick wall in it. So I decided to shoot here on this tiny little landing. Didn't give me a lot of space, but it worked out just fine. For this shoot, I was using a single light. As you can see here, it's just a octagon shaped softbox with a speed light in it. I have it aimed kind of across the subject here. It's not aimed directly at them, and it's kind of pointed down, and it sits a little bit above them. I like to use a grid on the softbox as well, just so that I can actually direct the light a little bit more. I am shooting on my 85mm Sigma prime lens here, and all the settings here were at f2.8, ISO was at 320, I was at 1/160th of a second, and my flash is only set at 1/128, just kind of has a little bit of a fill light for this scene here. I like to go through 4 standard poses here to give the little bit of variety for the client. I like to do standing facing the camera, arms down, standing facing the camera with the arms crossed, and then I'll have them turn 45 degrees to the light, which is really easy to kind of direct them to that. I'll have them cross their arms, and then I'll also have them do a arms down picture here. Just gives a little bit of variety for the client, which I like to give just to make sure that they have something that they're satisfied with. It also makes it really easy to flow through the poses if you start arms down, arms up, and then arms down. I also like to review all my images with my clients. That way they can kind of approve from them right off the bat. And if they don't like something, then we can actually start over or kind of change things up and work out what's going to be best for them. For the shoot, I was using a Godox V862, also with a remote flash trigger. I have two newer softboxes, one in an octagon shape and one in a stripped softbox with a light. I also have these two constant lights. They're made by GVM and they are 60 watt daylight balanced LED light. On this shoot, the client actually had a new doctor to the office, and so they requested to have a secondary shoot with just her. They wanted me to shoot against the actual backdrop for this one, so I brought a gray backdrop with me. It's a nice neutral tone. It makes it so that they kind of pop off the background a little bit. I also want to do something a little bit different for her, so I actually had a 2-light setup with this one. I used my GVM 60 watt LED light as a constant light. I placed that camera right and also above the subject, pointing down at 45 degrees with that octagon softbox on there with the grid. I also had my Godox speed light set on the strip softbox, which is camera left. It is pointing at a 45 angle to the subject there and using it kind of as a fill light, whereas the constant light is more of a key light for that one. This makes a nice kind of shadow on the client's face there with the constant light, but with the strip box, it does illuminate quite a bit to her right or our left. For this one, I am using the same Sigma 85mm prime lens, still shooting at f2.8, 1/160th of a second. ISO is still at 320 and my flash was still at 1/128th of a second. I do also like to review the photos with this client as well, mainly because this is her professional type headshots for her. So I wanted to make sure that she liked the images. We also did in her scrubs here, and then we also did a few with just her lab coat on as well. That way she had a couple of options to make sure that she got exactly what she wanted.
All right, so we just wrapped the shoot up here. I've got all my gear loaded back in the vehicle again. It took 2 trips to get all that back there, but I'm happy I brought it all. I actually ended up using more than I anticipated using before. So like I said, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So I was able to get these pictures done. We wrapped up the headshot session here. We did about 14 of the staff here. They had 2 people that were out sick, so I'll be coming back for some more, which will be great. But also I was able to hand out some of my business cards here. So a lot of my business works on referrals. And so being able to get out there and meet people that wouldn't kind of be in my normal circle is super great. And it gives me the opportunity then to hand out my business card, make a good impression, serve that client the best way that I possibly can. And then hopefully they will reach out when they need additional pictures from me. So like I said, got it all wrapped up here, got it all packed back in the truck, and now it's time to head back. All right, well, now we're back here in the studio, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into Lightroom really fast, and I'll show you guys how I edit these headshots real fast. My whole philosophy with editing is just making the exposure look right. I don't do a whole bunch of tweaking or anything like that. We also don't do any big retouching. Our philosophy is we're not gonna take anything off of someone's face that is a permanent feature. So if they have some like acne or something like that, or maybe a pimple or a breakout, like I may go ahead and fix that for them. But other than that, I'm just going to leave them how they are because that's how they were made, and we're just going to keep them as true to themselves as possible. So let's go ahead and jump into Lightroom here real quick. You guys should see a screen recording hop up if I did this correctly. But this is where I'm at right now. So basically I've gone through and I've culled all my photos down. So I've got the selects here for the entire photo shoot that we did. So we're going to go ahead and jump in with this one real quick. So basically all I do is I do a lot of stuff here in the basic panel, and I will adjust, exposure, contrast, things of that sort. I don't really do anything crazy with the tone curve as far as it comes with these headshots, because I try to get them as right in camera as possible. And like I said, we try to kind of keep it as natural as possible, so I'm not going to do anything too crazy in there. But so first off, straight out of camera, the picture looks great, but what we're going to do is just maybe bring the exposure up just a little bit, just to make sure that we're in line with everything, making sure her facial features are nice and bright.
I'm also going to bring up the contrast just a little bit because that creates a little bit of definition in their face. I'm going to drop the highlights down so you kind of lose a little bit of that flash effect out of her face and her glasses. And I'm going to drop down the whites as well because that helps with highlights in the skin tones. I will boost the shadows just a little bit up because they were wearing black scrubs. So we want to make sure that those all stay true. But we don't want the blacks to be I guess desaturated, so we'll add a little bit of color back into those. So now that looks pretty good as far as it goes with the basic edit on that. I do like to dehaze them just a little bit, so we usually add about 10 or 12 in there. That cuts down the highlights as well just a little bit. So then we're going to come down in my HSL color panel. I am going to go ahead and drop the yellows quite a bit just because I don't want her skin to be too yellow. And we'll also, this is actually luminance, so we'll go ahead and saturation here, pull down the yellows as well as the oranges because we don't want her to look like an Oompa Loompa or anything crazy. We'll also pull down the luminance of the yellows just to make sure her skin tones stay pretty true. One thing I do like to do is go into the color grading. This is the new feature with the newest update in Lightroom. It actually gives you the opportunity to add some split toning to your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. I like to go ahead and in my shadows add a little bit of a blue tone to it, and just like a real shallow amount of it, nothing more than about 8 or 10 on the saturation on that. And then in my midtones and my highlights, I like to add a little bit of orange back in. It just gives it that kind of cinematic feel and makes the photos pop just a little bit more. So we'll go ahead and add that in. And then on our blending at the next panel here, we're going to do the balance more towards the highlights here, and also do the blending a little bit more. Then the big part here, the photo is already very sharp as it looks, but I do like to add a little bit of additional sharpening. I have learned that with my Canon EOS R, if I add the sharpening back in, I do get that really nice tack sharp kind of image. So I reduced my radius to 0.5 and increased the detail to 100. I learned that that is the way to do it based upon the camera sensor that is in my camera. And then I will actually throw a mask on here. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard, you can see exactly where the sharpening is going to go. And I like to increase this mask until I just get their facial features and mainly their eyes, because that's the most important part of the entire picture. And then we'll increase the sharpening until I get to a place where it looks pretty good. And I'm going to go with right there. Now this was shot at ISO 320, so there isn't any noise in the picture per se, but I am going to add just a little bit of noise reduction on there just to make sure that there isn't any weird grain or anything of that sort. And then the big part for me, when I'm doing portraits and things like that, I have noticed that a lot of lenses that we use kind of create a fall-off effect where the person is actually kind of leaning back. So we like to go into the transform tab here, and we like to do a little bit of a vertical adjustment on it to make them stand up a little more straight. And then when you do that, you also have to increase the aspect ratio a little bit to make them look normal and human again. And then we constrain to crop on that. Now you can see up here it did cut her head off, so what I need to do is then move the crop to where I want it to be. And then for a traditional headshot, I like to follow the thirds where this line here on the third is lined up right at the bottom of her chin, so you get a traditional headshot from that there. And so that's my basic edit on this. One thing that I will do after this is I will go ahead and look at her face and see if there's any small imperfections on her face that I will go ahead and take care of, like this little spot right here. So I'll go over my spot healing, I'll make sure it's on heal, and I'll get as small of a part as I can and just go ahead and click and zap that away. And everything else though looks pretty great. No crazy flyaways or anything like that. We can actually try to get rid of this one here and see how it works. The brick wall might throw it for a loop in the background there. Alright, that looks pretty good. And then one last thing I like to do is soften up their skin just a little bit. Sometimes the sharpening does add a little bit too much. So in my adjustment brushes here, I do have several brushes that I have pre-made. One here I like to use is the Skin Soft Glow, and basically what it does is it reduces the clarity and the sharpness on their skin, and it also knocks down some of the highlights a little bit, and it makes it just so that their skin is nice and smooth and that there's nothing too crazy that pops out or anything like that. So we just run a quick brush over their face, and that should do it. One thing to note on this is that I do have the flow pretty low on this brush. I usually go about 30 to 40%, somewhere right in there. So it's not doing too much because like I said, we like to keep their face as natural as possible. And then one last thing I will do is I will add a little brightness to her eyes just to make them pop a little bit. So I have a brush here that is increasing saturation and clarity and a little bit of exposure, and I'll go ahead and brighten up her iris and pupils just to make it so that she has a little bit of a pop in her eyes there. And being as this is the dentist office, they all had spectacular teeth, so I didn't need to worry anything about that. And so that's basically my edit on this picture here. I think it looks great. It looks very true to who she is and what she's got going on. So for this photo shoot, they were all taking pictures in the same exact spot, which is really great. And basically, I can take this image and I can copy the settings from it and take off any of the local brush adjustments, the transform mode, because each person's going to be different, and any of the crop and spot removals. And I'll copy these settings, and then I can actually go back to my grid square here, and I can select all the additional photos that fall into the same light pattern, and I can actually just paste by right-clicking and develop settings, and then down to paste settings. And now this will paste all of my adjustments and everything that I did to this individual onto every other picture and keep their exposure congruent throughout the whole thing, which is important for a business on their website. So now you can see all these pictures are looking relatively the same. I'll go ahead and get these ones at the top, and then that should about do it. So I'm going to go through and finish up all these pictures, and then we should be good to go. If you guys got any value of this content, go ahead and click the subscribe button right below so you can see more videos like this from us in the future. Also, click that thumbs up button. It really does help us out with the YouTube algorithm, gets this video out to more people. And go ahead and click the bell notification so you can be notified of future videos like this one. But that's all for me today, guys. We will see you on the next one. Bye.